VR, big deal.
Big deal, CES. Unsurprisingly, probably the biggest thing of the whole show.
Yeah, as 2016 is potentially the year of VR.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that because I'm not. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that.
And it coincides also with the pre-orders opening for the Oculus Rift.
Badass.
Which
happened on like Wednesday, was it?
Yeah, Wednesday evening here.
Which was bittersweet for you.
Yeah, I mean we went through the. So I sat there waiting for this pre-order for a while. I had an alarm set on my phone at work.
Nice.
As you heard, probably go off.
Yeah.
And
I was there for the last minute or so.
Yeah, watching the last countdown. It was counting down 10, 9, 8. Got to the end. The website obviously froze like straight away.
Yeah.
And then I was sure, have I ordered it? Have I not ordered it? Eventually got through. Price. I thought it was going to be about £350 British pounds or £400.
I think you weren't saying that before that your sort of limit was like 400 or something, or you could stretch maybe just over 400, but 400 was like pushing it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be that much. It probably wasn't going to be that much. Probably as much as like the DK2, like the latest.
Well, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be
similar to that.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the the pound equivalent of the DK2, so like £350 basically instead of $350, and it was $600.
Savage.
Which is a lot. And then when I actually put the order in and it realised it was in the UK, that went up to 500 British pounds, which is like $700 or something like that, $800.
Fucking steep.
Yeah, really expensive. And then added £30 on for delivery, so £530. Which is
it's not
a lot.
It's that really annoying amount, isn't it? Because it's not like completely out of the ballpark, like grand, like $2,000, $1,000 or whatever. That's like fuck that, that's insane. Or it's not like super cheap, like give me that now, I want it. It's like just enough to be like considering it and like sort of have that like inner debate, like conflict about whether should I do it, should I not do it, and then you ended up doing it.
I did. I couldn't help myself.
Gotta be done.
I put the pre-order in, and I don't have to pay for it until it actually ships. So I'll reassess the financial situation when we actually get to it being delivered. Yeah. So I haven't really shot myself in the foot yet. But I've got that gun. The gun is loaded and pointing at my head. Yeah. Instead of my foot.
And that trigger's going to be pulled in.
It probably is, yeah.
Like 3 months.
So I've actually, and so my delivery date is April.
Nice. That's early, considering.
Well, yeah.
Like now, the pre-orders going in now are like shipping in like July and shit, right? And possibly even August by this point.
I wonder if the website crashes were worse here, just because we're a bit further away from, I presume, the Oculus.
Like servers.
They host their servers in the US probably.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
So the chances are maybe because I was like there hammering refresh, trying to get my details in as quickly as possible. Might even be one of the first few thousand to get it here in the UK.
Yeah. Possibly.
And we can definitely do like a reaction video and stuff, because you haven't actually tried it out.
Nope. My only little taste of VR has been that like Google Cardboard thing. Yeah. It's just your phone stuck in like a little cardboard headset. Yeah. Which was wicked. I mean, I loved it, but it's not. I mean, it's a totally different league, the Oculus.
It feels, I've used we've talked about on a previous episode, I've used the DK2, and it's totally different to a cardboard, and the consumer version is supposed to be way better.
And it comes with Valkyrie, doesn't it? The pre-order. Nice.
Yeah, which is going to be one of the best probably like early games for it.
Badass.
Because a space game is going to be so
cool.
My
god,
scale.
I can't even. I want to play a space game so badly.
Like Valkyrie's kind of going to be like an arcadey sort of dog fighting game.
Wicked.
Which is cool. But I'm also going to get Elite Dangerous probably.
Oh yes.
For that like giant scale space sim thing.
Yeah. And when's Star Citizen out? Is that out?
Not this year probably. It's definitely not out this year. It's a massive game now. Yeah. It's going to take a while to make.
The scale
might be out 2017, maybe 2018.
The size of like the galaxy or the map of it isn't anywhere near the size of like Elite Dangerous, is it?
I actually don't quite know how they're doing that. They are doing borderline planetary scale stuff.
No, sorry, I don't mean the scale. The scale's all, I think, pretty much 1-to-1 in Star Citizen. But I mean the size of them, like the number of planets, the number of stars, all that kind of stuff. I think Elite Dangerous is like way bigger.
Well, Elite Dangerous is the entire Milky Way simulated.
Yeah.
In a 1-to-1 scale.
Which is insane.
Yeah, which is insane. Obviously, a lot, that's procedurally generated. But, Star Citizen, no, I think it's going to have like regions that it's more like handcrafted. I think Star Citizen, which has its benefits and its drawbacks. Yeah. So those 3 games are going to be awesome in VR.
I mean, I just want to try something like just the demos. I just want to be in a virtual world and just experience that sense of presence and all that shit. Like, that's what I want. Like, and whatever gives me that.
I'm going to try and find the like perfect demo. I'm going to try like a bunch of different things and try and work out like what's the one that's really going to get people like excited when they first put it on, what like really blow you away. So yeah, that's coming. Consider that on its way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've actually pre-ordered the Oculus Rift, but at CES the Oculus Rift was there.
Yeah,
it was nothing new.
No, nothing announced really. It was just people trying out, I guess, a consumer version.
Yeah, they were playing like a kind of like first-person shooting game where they like go on a train and you have the Oculus controllers and like shoot stuff, and apparently it's pretty fun.
That's cool.
And people, people are saying it's really amazing, etc.
Yeah.
But the Vive, HTC and Steam came with their updated prototype model, the Vive Pre, which is seemingly a slightly updated version of the previous prototype that they've been bringing.
Yeah.
In terms of they've updated the look of it, they've made it lighter. The straps are slightly changed. I think the screens are the same and everything. They've changed the optics slightly, and they've updated the controllers and the way they handle. But the most significant thing, which they kept saying they were bringing a big technological breakthrough,
and it's the reason they pushed back their like release date for the consumer version and everything as well.
That's what they said.
They pushed it back by several months because of this.
Yeah.
Big announcement.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
Which is just a camera basically,
front-facing camera.
A front-facing camera. Is it really a big technological breakthrough? I know that it's mostly software that's the breakthrough, probably.
Yeah,
the camera itself probably isn't. But is the software thing really a breakthrough? I mean, it's basically an updated version of the Chaperone system.
Yeah.
So with the Vive, what people seem to be saying is that it's really good for like room scale VR. Mm-hmm. So you can put these 2 sensors down in a room, and you have like a 5 meter by 5 meter cube in which you can explore and walk around in. If you get to the edge of that, you get like a virtual wall that comes up.
Okay.
But with the front facing camera on the Vive now, you can also like map in real objects. So not actually create like a 3D kind of model of them that's then usable in VR in the same way that you might be able to do a Project Tango, but rather it just brings in like a monochrome image. Which is still seemingly in 3D. You're able to see stuff basically around you. I
presume it almost just overlays the image of the camera on what you see in the virtual world in a kind of like black and white, like sort of ghost kind of, it's sort of there but not there kind of sense.
And so you can, for example, if someone put a chair down in your 3D, in your cube, in which you're walking around in, you'd be able to like look at that and sit down on it, which is cool.
I mean, yeah, it's cool. I actually think that these kind of things are... Like that is almost like necessary. Like it's a necessary thing for VR, especially gaming applications. Because you can imagine like if you're in a room with people in it and there's like food, like a table with drinks or whatever on it. Like when you play a game like split screen games with loads of people in the room. You occasionally like pass controllers and drink stuff, eat stuff, like chat, talk, move around, and to be able to like sort of be still in the room by pressing a button and suddenly you can see the table and you know where your drinks are and like
it's far less painful than taking the thing on and off, which would be annoying.
Exactly, and you'd probably just get really in the habit of doing that every now and again to like do stuff. I think that's cool. I think that's necessary.
Yeah.
I think you start seeing that kind of thing being built into like the other VR headsets.
Yeah, I wonder if Oculus will. They'll probably build that sort of thing into their second consumer version.
Yeah.
But they might even come out with a like a clip-on peripheral that you can buy for people who bought the first consumer version. Yeah. That essentially just does the same thing.
So yeah, I think it's necessary. I think it's cool, but I don't think it's like anywhere near as big a deal as they sort of build it to be.
Not really, no. Not really. So in terms of the differences then between the Vive and the Oculus, lots of people are going to be trying to decide which one to go for.
Yeah.
We'll probably also include in that the PlayStation VR as well.
Yeah.
Now we don't know the price. We only know the price of the Oculus,
which was a lot more than what people were expecting.
And the HTC is probably going to be more expensive, or at least they've always said that it's kind of going to be a high end, like expensive device. I'm not sure whether they considered $600 to be that, and that's what they've always been saying. And Oculus was just accidentally or on purpose or whatever you think,
just a bit of a surprise. like their price when it came out.
And actually, it won't be that difference in price to the Oculus.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are going to be trying to decide between these 3 different headsets, which one they should go for. And obviously, we haven't tried them out yet.
No.
But after reading and watching a lot of videos and getting people's impressions, I think it depends on what you want them for.
Right.
So the Oculus is going to be possibly better if you're going to want to just sort of sit in front of your desk and do, for example, like Star Citizen, these kinds of things. And that's just because it seems like, from what most people say, the headset is just slightly more refined than the Vive.
Right. By refined, what do you mean? Like,
as in, so the Vive still has a problem with the screen, a slight problem with the screen door effect. So the screen door effect's like where you can see the pixels of the screen.
Shit. Yeah. So you're like looking through almost like a mesh at like.
Yeah.
Behind.
Whereas the Oculus, they've got some clever optical diffuser technology thing that blurs that out, so you can't really see it. And I think the headset's just slightly lighter and slightly more comfortable with the Oculus. I've also heard that the Oculus controllers are slightly better for making it feel like your hands are in VR than the Vive ones. So the Vive ones are kind of like a trigger and a touchpad, whereas the Oculus ones are designed so that when you pinch...
Yeah, it's got like buttons like weirdly on it.
It feels, when you pinch with the controller, it feels like you're doing that in VR.
Yeah.
So picking stuff up feels more natural. Yeah. So I think if you're sat down in front of your computer, it might be that the Oculus is the one to go for. Some people did say, I noticed, that they thought potentially the field of view was smaller in the Oculus, slightly narrower.
Are you aware of that then? Can you actually see the edges of the field of view?
You can. You forget about it really quickly.
Right. I didn't know that.
No,
that's actually slightly disappointing. I want to be totally immersed in it.
Yeah, it's just not possible at the moment.
Yeah. And it's 100 degrees, isn't it? The Oculus.
110 apparently.
110. I mean, that's pretty good.
Well, I read some stuff, and they were listing on, I think it was like Tech Radar or something. They were listing the Oculus and the HTC Vive having the same field of view. So I can't quite work out actually which one has, if there is any truth in this stuff.
But people have been saying
people's perceptions of things and whatever. I don't know.
Weird.
And the demos they were using.
Yeah.
But they certainly seem to suggest that the Vive maybe had a slightly larger field of view.
Yeah.
They've both got what looks like the same panels. They're the same resolution. They're probably the same, size and everything. Basically, they're probably exactly the same.
They're very similar, yeah.
Like specifically made for VR OLED panels.
Yeah.
Have a 90 hertz refresh rate. And they're low persistent screens. And there's 2 of them in both of those two, in the Oculus and the Vive. They both have 2 screens, one for each eye.
Cool.
So yeah, but the field of view thing, I agree with you. I sort of thought when before I knew much about it and tried it, that it was going to be. Well, after reading about it, I knew that before I actually tried it, that it wasn't like just totally, like you can't have no block of your peripheral vision. You do have a block, but it's like that. Like you
like a tiny bit. And I guess because you're wearing a headset, you're aware that you've got something over your eyes anyway. So like, I mean, I've got glasses on now.
They're blocking. That's blocking some of your peripheral vision.
Like my vision is. I mean, I've got peripheral vision out the side of it, but like I am aware that I have like a big black ring around my.
But it doesn't.
Side. I don't notice it. No. I don't even think about it.
Exactly.
It doesn't detract from my like experience of the world.
Yeah.
So it's probably fine.
It's not that dissimilar in VR. As soon as you put it on, and then like you just like.
Yeah.
You don't really kind of notice. The price of the Vive, if it's more expensive, could be interesting if it's like £800 or something, $800, $700, something like even $1,000. Because I mean that's really pushing it for consumers.
Yeah. I mean it's got to be, if it's that much, it's got to be really delivering something the Oculus isn't.
Yeah. And it is what it is. So the Oculus, like I said, is good for sitting in front of the computer.
Yeah.
But the Vive Pre is what you want for room scale stuff. So if you want to have if you've got space to have a room in which you're going to put your laser sensors around the room, 2 of them, create your cube. If you want to kind of move around and walk around in VR, pick things up, kind of have that kind of more, I suppose probably a slightly more immersive experience, I'd imagine. Like there's things that you can do in it, basically, that the Oculus sensors can do, but weren't specifically designed to do.
Yeah.
For example, like the room scale stuff. So actually, my mate has actually, from my flatmate has ordered an Oculus as well.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have 2 of them in my house.
That's correct. You're probably one of the first households in the UK to have like multiple Oculus Rifts.
Yeah. And we're going to try and get the 2 sensors and jack them into basically stick them in a room.
Badass.
And make like a room scale version. But we won't have the mapping that you get with the HTC.
Sure. So the positioning done with the Oculus is done purely with one camera that's like sort of doing motion capture.
It's like a wide angle camera
on these infrared like dots that are all over
on the controllers and on the headset on the front and
so
back.
But the HTC takes that one step further and actually gives you like 2 points of reference so that it can map you more accurately. Or is it like fundamentally different in the way that it does it?
It's fundamentally different in the way it does it, I think.
Yeah.
So the Oculus thing, I think, is literally just a camera, like a normal camera that's got a very high speed, kind of like specifically designed.
But if you turn 180 degrees around, so that the headset is essentially shielded from the camera.
Yeah, but it's got stuff on the back of the Oculus, so they know
sorting me out.
That's fine. Now it won't lose tracking.
Right.
It's just that the HTC one basically is designed for a larger space. It sprays lasers everywhere instead of having a camera that just films.
Yeah.
So it's just better.
It's better for like exploring like a larger space, like a 3D kind of environment.
So if you've got the space and that's the thing you want from VR.
Yeah.
Although I'm skeptical, there's going to be many games that really take advantage of that feature to start with. I feel like most of them are going to be seated experiences, like driving, flying games, these kind of space games.
Because it's much harder. Yeah, it's much harder to like something like an FPS. Is much harder to do in VR convincingly.
And if you're
going to keep running into the walls if you're trying to do that like full scale.
I don't really know how that would. I mean, there's a really cool game called Job Simulator where you sit at a desk, like a virtual desk, and you've got to like put CDs in and do all this crazy stuff. And like surgery simulators and those kind of things would be cool if you could get up and walk around things. I can see those being quite good with the Vive.
Yeah.
But I ended up going for the Oculus because I feel like, to start with, it's going to be a while until the really, really great experiences are going to be like room scale experiences. I also don't really have the space to do that in my phone.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably won't. You need quite a big room, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Clear some space. You need a dedicated VR room is what you want.
Yeah. That's going to happen at some point.
Oh yeah. I remember when I was a kid imagining that. Like playing like... I used to have a Sega Master System, old school console, and playing like Sonic. I remember thinking then, like, in the future we're going to be doing this, like we're going to be in the game, like in a room that's dedicated for it. I want that in my house when I'm older and stuff.
Yeah, and now it's actually
happening.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be like something you'd plug into your brain, basically.
Yeah,
you know, like in a sort of like super futuristic way,
like the Matrix, basically.
Yeah. And so the final option for everyone would be the PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
Now we know a bit less about that.
Yes, especially me.
Do we know less about that? We don't know how much it's going to cost, but the problem with the PlayStation VR is that there was a story this week that it may have to have its own onboard processor, because the PlayStation 4, in comparison to a gaming PC, is a bit of a shit piece of hardware in comparison. It's nowhere near as powerful, and you need so much processing power for VR. Not only do you have to... So you know the resolution of these headsets is about, I can't remember, it's like 2160 by 1. So it's over 1080p. It's higher than 1080p.
For each screen?
No.
In total.
But it has to render those images. So most games on the PlayStation 4, for example, run at 30 frames a second. It needs to run them at 90 frames a second. Yep. And not only that, but things like anti-aliasing, so the jaggedies you get in video games look like fucking horrible in VR. So what I think they're actually doing is rendering them a much higher resolution and then like rendering down again and correcting to put it on these headsets. So actually they're rendering at a much higher resolution anyway than even the headsets are, and they have to do that at 90 frames a second.
Jesus.
To keep it. So there's a huge amount of stress put on the computing side. So and the PlayStation 4 can't really handle that. It will do for very basic experiences. But if you want games like Eve Valkyrie in its like full glory, it's probably not going to be able to do it. So there might have to be some type of onboard processing they can do, which is going to make the headset itself a lot more expensive. Yeah. Whether it will be more expensive than the Oculus, I don't know, and that's just because it has I don't think it has two screens. Maybe it does have two screens. The PlayStation VR, I'm not sure, but it definitely has a lower resolution. It's only a 1080p resolution. Yeah. So what I'm imagining is the PlayStation VR, you won't have to spend so much on getting a PC, a gaming PC, to get the power to run VR. But you may have to fork out a similar amount for the headset, but overall it will be cheaper because a lot of gamers already have PlayStation 4s. So we'll see. I think of the PC ones, we sort of know which ones you just need to decide what you're going to do with it. and then you'll be able to choose which of the two you want. If you want the full room, the Vive. If you want
full room and the front-facing camera, like 3D objects in the virtual world aspect, which possibly will come for the Oculus anyway fairly soon, but we don't know that for sure.
No,
you definitely will be getting that up front with the HTC Vive.
But and then obviously if you own a PS4 and you don't have a gaming PC, then if you really want a VR experience and don't want to fork out for one of those, then PlayStation VR is basically your only option. We'll see how much that costs. That's going to be very interesting, and I'm very, very interested to see how many headsets they sell at Oculus, how many pre-orders go through at this price point, because I know a lot of people who were considering it and were and just said it's just too expensive. I also know some people who said it's too expensive and then a day later bought it anyway.
Well, like you.
I bought it immediately.
Sure.
So I guess we'll find out. We'll sort of see how that pans out. I'm going for the Oculus for now.
Yeah.
I'll probably get another one in 2 or 3 years.
So with the Oculus now on pre-orders and the HTC Vive probably going onto pre-orders in a few months.
Yes, in February, I think.
It does seem like, as we sort of said in our previous video, that 2016 is kind of the year that VR kicks off. But then you mentioned earlier that you think that might not be the case. Like, what were you talking about? So is 2016 the year of VR?
The only reason I think it's just that it's the year of VR starting to be released as a proper consumer product. Sure, yes. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be the year that VR really takes off. That a VR headset sells a million units. Well, maybe it will. Maybe they will in total this year, just because the price is too high. Most people can't or don't want to fork out that much money for a gaming PC and a headset. It's going to be mostly the relatively hardcore kind of like audience that's going to invest in that. I can't see the general consumer paying that kind of money. And then you need to buy a gaming PC, and some people, it's just kind of a different. It depends how much the PlayStation VR costs. If the PlayStation VR is, it's never going to be $200. No. Say it's $300.
Which is probably still too low.
Which is too low, probably.
But let's say it is.
Which is $50 cheaper than a PlayStation 4 is on its own. I could see. Could I see a million of them being sold? Maybe. But I only mean like total VR headsets. Maybe there'll be a million sold this year. But it's not going to be the year where you start seeing people like in every room.
Yeah, sure.
It's they're going to have to get cheaper. It's like the iPhones. They were really expensive to start with. And they took a while before everyone had a smartphone. I don't necessarily think everyone, like, it's not going to get to the numbers of smartphones with VR headsets, really. But I definitely...
So this is the year of like the first wave of the early adopters and the high end stuff coming out, showing what can be done, and then possibly next year or the year after when we start seeing like the cheaper stuff. Like,
I think it would be
exploiting the computing
2018 before it's really kind of settling in. Although people make the argument that it's just a gimmick and that actually we'll get bored of the experiences. It won't be better than gaming on normal monitors, etc. I don't buy that.
I mean, I haven't tried it, but
I don't think it's that at all.
There's so many applications that are beyond just gaming.
Yes,
I think it's going to be like world changing eventually.
You talk to anyone who's worn one of these things, and it's almost unanimously, holy shit, this is going to be massive. And of course that early wave of adopters that like me buying it for a stupid price that I shouldn't do, are going to be telling everyone to come over and like use it, try it out. There's going to be loads of videos of people reacting to it on YouTube. People are going to start, and people already do know and have heard about it who aren't the people who would be buying it as an early adopter. But when people get it in their hands, you cannot describe what it's like. Just you have to experience it. And the more they get out there, the easier it's going to be to sell. Because when people put these things on, they're sold very, very quickly. And once the price comes down and they're affordable, there's going to be very little reason why most people are going to... Do you think it's still a hurdle that people have to wear something, that it's kind of, it is a bit of, obviously it's seen as like a geeky thing to sit in your room or sit in a lounge with your mate and just like wear a headset and kind of like be in a virtual world. Like
that will put some people off for sure.
It will,
it definitely will. But I mean, there's no other way of doing it for like probably for many decades. So I mean, the devices themselves probably get smaller and lighter as time goes on. But until we work out how to like feed data directly into your like optic nerve or whatever.
Well, maybe
cool.
maybe
that technology's closer.
Into your eye.
Yeah, but you still have to wear something for that.
Yeah, but it might just be like a pair of glasses rather than which would be. But you'd still have to wear something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, for example, I was speaking to a friend who was put off by the idea that he didn't like basically the idea of just sitting in his room and just kind of being like kind of taken out of the world. He was just like, is that too far? He thought maybe it was too far.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care about that.
Yeah, fuck that.
As soon as I used it, I was like, no, I'm getting one of these straight away.
But being taken out of the world is kind of like part of
That's the point. That's what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what I want out of it.
Yeah,